Good evening and welcome to the 2024 entry-level firefighter examination information session. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. Down there, can you hear me all right? Wonderful. All right, so I'm Joel Gunn. I'm a Personnel Analyst 3 with the City of Columbus Civil Service Commission. I've overseen this test for the past couple of administrations, and this year I'm passing it off to Kayla Burke. She is a Personnel Analyst 1 with the City of Columbus Civil Service Commission, and she's going to present a lot of the information about the exam tonight. Next to her is Lieutenant Josh Gilman from the Columbus Division of Fire Recruiting Unit, and he can answer any questions you have about what happens when you're a real firefighter in the academy, all that good stuff. So we'll have a whole Q&A session at the end. So today we're going to go over general test information for the exam. We're going to talk about all three phases of the test and go over some frequently asked questions. I'll point out relevant parts of the study guide as I go. Everybody should have a study guide on their table that they can use. For those of you watching at home, you can download that study guide on the City of Columbus Civil Service Commission website. So a little bit about who we are before we get started. The City of Columbus Civil Service Commission, we govern the selection process for each city job. We're the primary contact point for candidates seeking a job with the city. We assess the qualifications for 88% of all city jobs, and we develop and administer employment tests for each of those jobs. One of those is Firefighter, and that's what brings you all here tonight. We do test development and administration. This includes a thorough job analysis. We consult subject matter experts to make sure we understand what the job is and then how to test it. We identify knowledges, skills, and abilities a person needs to effectively perform the actual job of firefighter, and we rely heavily on division personnel to serve as subject matter experts and give us information that we need. This includes job observations and interviews with various subject matter experts. The City of Columbus Civil Service Commission is a completely separate entity from the Division of Fire. Since we're involved in the process of selecting qualified candidates, people conclude that civil service and fire are the same entity, but we are not. We are completely separate. We find candidates with skills that match the job. That's kind of our mission here. Each job requires different knowledges, skills, and abilities. So imagine the daily work of an accountant and how much that differs from a firefighter or a police officer, but we do the same thing for each job, making sure we understand the job and constructing the test accordingly. Our other goal is to ensure fairness, consistency, equal access, and a merit-based procedure. A fair test will assess for specific skills needed to effectively perform the actual job. We ensure exams are consistent with actual job and test experience across applicants. We ensure equal access to testing and hiring, and quite frankly, the firefighter job isn't for everyone. This requires people who are a good job match, who have the relevant skills, knowledge, and abilities. All right, so this some of this information is on the study guide, in the study guide on page 5. This is a competitive process. During the 2022 administration, we had over 3,200 applicants for the job of firefighter, and only 562 made it to the eligible list. So the first lesson here is make sure you're on time when you're coming for your test day. Late candidates will not be admitted into the exam. It's important to arrive early. I'm trying to just get this out there as soon as possible. Show up at least 15 minutes before your scheduled test time, because I don't want to have to turn anybody away on exam day. As far as preparing for the test, made sure each one of you has a study guide, so please take your time, review that. There are plenty of practice questions. Take a look at those. And repeat the practice as much as you need to understand what the material is. Want to make sure everybody's committed. So, if you want to take this test, you want to be a firefighter, 80% of success is just showing up. So make sure you're here on test day. Communication is very important as well for the testing process and the hiring process. Our primary method of communication is through your email, so make sure you check your email regularly. As far as Civil Service Commission contact info, the firefighter employment line is 645-0879. The email is policefiretesting@columbus.gov. Any questions you have about the exam, you can just contact us there. And that contact info will be at the bottom of every notice we email to you. So this is not top secret information, and we'll give it to you repeatedly. Help us help you out if you have questions. Be direct in your message. Be clear with your name and phone number. Speak slowly and include your question in your message. If you would like to contact Fire Recruiting, they have a bunch of different opportunities to prepare for the test, study sessions, that sort of thing. You can text Join CFD to 888-777, and you'll receive notifications about upcoming test prep. Our website is columbus.gov/civilservice/uniformed-fire-series/firefighter. On that part of the website, that's everything you need to know for firefighter. We have dates, we have resources, we have contact information, a bunch of great stuff. So you can find a study guide there if you lose yours. There are firefighter mile orientation guides. There are different videos that we'll talk about later today, but familiarize yourself with that webpage. There are a lot of great resources there to help you prepare for the test. So the firefighter exam is a three-phase exam. The first phase, which we'll call phase 1, is the multiple choice exam. Phase 2 is the fire oral assessment mechanism, henceforth referred to as the foam. Phase 3 is the firefighter mile. That is a physical test, and we'll explain what's involved in all three of these phases tonight. So the way these tests are weighted, multiple choice is pass-fail. You either pass the test or you fail it. Same thing with the firefighter mile. There is no ranking based on those two phases. All of the ranking is based on your foam score. You will be put into a band based on your score, 1 band, 2 band, 3 band. The only thing you really need to remember about that is the higher your score, the sooner you get an opportunity to go into the academy, the sooner you can get hired. Everybody who passes all three phases of the exam is placed on an eligible list. And again, you're placed based on your foam score. So another way of saying that is your overall exam score is your foam, and that's weighted 100% of your final score. All right, so there's well, it's not brand new, but there's kind of a new Columbus Civil Service rule. If you pass the written exam, the multiple choice in 2017, 2019, or 2022, you don't have to retake it this time. You go straight to the foam. You will be considered to have passed the 2024 firefighter multiple choice exam if you passed it in any of the three previous administrations. And we keep track of that for you. If you know you passed and you're still invited to the written exam, give us a call. We'll get it straightened out. So again, that rule only applies to entry-level firefighter and police officer examinations and only applies to the written phases. Everybody has to retake the foam, and everybody who takes the foam and passes has to retake the firefighter mile. And that's with the caveat that the exam wasn't changed significantly from the previous administration. It was not, so the rule is still in effect. Test locations. So for 2024, there are 2 different test locations. The first one is right here at 1111 East Broad Street in the Jerry Hammond building. You will take your written exam in this room you are in right now, so you know where you're going, you know where to park, you know where you're going to be. You will take the written examination right here in this room. For the foam, you're just going to go down the hall and that's where we administer the foam. So one test day, you're taking the written, you're taking the foam right here, and you're finished until you hear from us again. If you pass the foam, you will be invited to the Firefighter Mile, which takes place at the Columbus Fire Training Academy. That's at 3639 Parsons Avenue. Just as a reminder, every single email you get will tell you where you're supposed to come for that phase of the exam. So check your email, read your test notices. Also, keep your contact info updated. If you change mailing addresses or email addresses, log into your profile and let us know there. Just change it there so we're sending communications to the right place. We want you to show up. We want you to take the test, so help us out. Just to reiterate, your location, date, and time will always be in your admission notices. And I believe the study guide on page 3 has a little paragraph on how to update your contact information if you ever need to. On exam day, it's a good idea to bring a copy of your admission notice with you. You can print it out or just show us on your phone. Either one's fine. You will also need an ID to get into the test on test day. We just need to verify who you are. We'll take a driver's license, we'll take a learner's permit, we'll take any state-issued ID. All right, so phase 1 is the multiple choice phase of the firefighter examination. There are multiple subtests for the multiple choice exam. First is the situational judgment test. Then there's map reading, mathematics, reading comprehension, and my personal favorite, mechanical aptitude. That's what separates firefighters from pretty much any other job. The multiple choice test is designed to test your cognitive abilities that are important to the job of a firefighter. It's going to be a lot like an SAT test or anything you took in high school with the Scantron sheet where you bubble in the correct answer. There will be 3 to 5 alternatives for each question. There are approximately 140 questions, and the entire thing, if you use all the time, takes about 4 hours. You're not required to use all of that time, but we make it available. So subtest number 1 is the situational judgment portion. This tests judgment that is needed in workplace situations. This is going to be a video-based assessment, and it shows non-fire workplace situations. Each situation calls for good judgment. And up next, we're going to show you a sample of what that test will look like and then offer some additional clarification. So I'm going to show you a little video here. This is going to take about 3.5 minutes. And I'll explain more after that.
Scene 1. A newly hired employee with the American Blood Drive has been trained and certified on drawing blood, but has not actually performed this task independently with a live person and is still very uncomfortable.
ABC Incorporated is having a blood drive tomorrow. I know that you are new, but I would like for you to attend and help out.
No problem. I'll do whatever you need me to do.
You are new, but I would like for you to attend and help out.
You do know that I've never done this on my own.
Scene 2.
When you get to the blood drive at ABC Incorporated, I would like for you to help with patient registration. I know that you haven't actually drawn blood from a live person before, so I would like for you to observe our other employees as they are taking the blood draws.
The very next day at ABC Incorporated, one of the blood drive workers who is responsible for drawing blood had to leave due to a family emergency.
Okay, I understand. One of our workers has a family emergency and has to leave right away. So I'm going to need you to jump in at her station and start drawing blood from people right away.
I wasn't prepared for this today. Can someone help me get started?
So I'm going to need you to jump in at her station and start drawing blood from people right away.
I'm not doing it. I told you I haven't done it before.
A donor who had been screened and ready to have their blood drawn comes to the new employee's station.
The last time they couldn't find my vein and they stuck me 5 times, so you better get it right the first time. Why do you look so nervous? Are you okay?
I'm good. I just want to make sure that I provide you with the best possible service.
Why do you look so nervous? Are you okay?
I wouldn't be here if I didn't know what I was doing.
Today for the situational judgment test. There are several versions of each response. Each response plays one time, and there are no replays on test day, so make sure you pay attention. You'll evaluate each response after it plays. You're going to have 10 seconds to evaluate each response and provide an answer. There's a scale you will use to rate each response, and you're going to use this on test day. A is highly effective, so if you thought that particular response was highly effective, you're just going to bubble in A on your scan sheet. B is satisfactory, C is substandard, and D is unacceptable. A more in-depth version of this is available in your study guide on page 6, so make sure you review that before test day. So each evaluation will go on the answer sheet. It's going to look just like this on your test. Response 1, and then you bubble in A, B, C, or D based on how you thought that response was, and you go through that for each answer. So some tips for taking the situational judgment exam. Carefully notice not only what is said, but also how it is said. Inflection and tone matter. So make sure you pay attention to that. Rate each response independently, and don't compare responses to each other. Some of them may have the same answer. It's possible for 2 responses to receive the same evaluation, and additional knowledge is not really required to do this. But just to go back a second and just really hammer on how this works. Highly effective means providing the desired effect. It's impressive. The response provided extra effort and attention that made it distinctly better than satisfactory. Satisfactory means fulfills the requirements resulting in a positive outcome, but nothing more. The response meets the standard but does not provide any extra effort, does not go above and beyond. Substandard means below standard or less than adequate. This will likely have a negative impact on the situation. The response may have positive points, but does not meet the standard of what would be expected or required for the situation. Unacceptable is clearly inferior. Without a doubt, the response would end in a negative outcome. Definitely wrong. All right, so the second subtest is map reading and following directions. This tests your ability to follow directions and read maps. Basically, you're going to take a look at a map in your test booklet and answer some questions about that map. Pages 7 and 8 have examples in the study guide. So, pop quiz time. How many directions are there? Well, there are 4 main ones, but for our purposes, we're going to say 8. North, south, east, west, northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast. You got the 4 cardinals and then 4 more in between. So we will ask you questions based on direction. So make sure you know what a compass looks like and which way north is relative to southeast and west. If you can do that, that's 80% of it. So on page 8, there's a sample question, and we're going to ask you questions kind of like this. We'll show you a map and ask which of the following streets is the southernmost street on the map. So we're going to be looking for streets down here at the bottom of the page, close to where the S is for south. This was from the 2019 version, this particular question. And the compass looked like this back then. We just had an arrow pointing north. All right, subtest number 3 is math. We're testing your ability to add, subtract, multiply, and divide whole numbers, fractions, and decimals. This includes simple geometry, which is the branch of math concerned with properties and relations of points, lines, surfaces, solids, and higher dimensional analogs. No calculators or smart devices are permitted. Page 10 on the study guide has a number of different formulas and conversions you will find helpful. On test day, make sure you study them. A sample math problem is something like this. Which of the numbers below best completes the series? This also involves some pattern recognition. I'm not going to ask you to do it on the spot. But here's how it works. If you subtract one number from the last in the series and look at the sequence, it's growing by 2 each time, 23 to 25 to 27 to 29. Therefore, the next one will be 31 higher than the previous. So the answer would have been A. 256 is the next number in the sequence. And then at the meta level, we also have 11 squared, 12 squared, 13 squared, 14 squared. So that's one type of problem we'll ask, combination of math and pattern recognition. Subtest number 4 is reading comprehension. This tests your ability to read and learn from text and apply that learning to related situations. You're going to read a brief passage and then answer a number of questions that are based on each passage. You do not need to memorize anything. You can refer back to that passage as much as you would like. So the important point here is to work to understand what you're reading, not to memorize it. The study guide on pages 11 through 16 has samples and explanations. So this is something that applies to the entire written test. Your test booklet, you can write all over that. That's fine. If you want to underline things, you want to circle things, you can go right ahead and do that. You are not scored on your test booklet. You are only scored on your answer sheet. So if it helps you out when you're reading things, feel free to mark in your test booklet. It's getting shredded after you use it anyway, so you might as well make the most of it. We do not reuse test booklets. Subtest number 5 is mechanical aptitude. This tests your knowledge of basic equipment and operation. These questions contain lots of illustrations. In the study guide, starting on page 17, there are a lot of basic terms, facts, and concepts that will be tested on exam day. Make sure you study these before your test. There's no bait and switch here. We're showing you exactly the type of questions you'll be tested on, so make sure you study. For example, we may ask you about different types of gears. This is straight out of the study guide. We have spur gears, bevel gears, worm gears, and rack and pinion gears. Anybody have an old school can opener that you have to use a hand to use? All right, those are spur gears. That's the kind of thing you might find in your kitchen, but it comes in handy when you're figuring out mechanical stuff. Okay, mechanical reasoning, AKA the light bulbs. This is everybody's favorite part of our exam. There is you're going to see questions like this on test day. There's a flow chart that includes an input. This is the input right here. You have red, yellow, green, and blue lights. All of them are on. You have a series of 3 switches represented by different shapes that do different things, that have different functions. And then you have your output. So the red light is on, the yellow light is off. The green light is on, the blue light is off. And your mission here with these is to diagnose the problem. Which switch has something wrong with it, if any? You will receive a mechanical reasoning key on test day. This is also on page 20 of your study guide, and you will use this to solve the mechanical reasoning problems. On test day, you're going to get this loose leaf so you can turn the pages in the test booklet and keep an eye on that. So there are different switches and different error codes. The switch represented by a circle has a primary function, which is all colors remain unchanged. However, if there is an error in this switch, the red lights remain unchanged and all other colors are turned off. If there's an error in that switch, you bubble in A on your scan sheet. A couple of wavy lines, that's the other switch. Red and yellow remain unchanged if it's functioning, and green and blue are turned off. If there is an error in the wavy line switch, the green and blue lights remain unchanged and red and yellow are turned off. If there is something wrong with the 2 wavy line switch, you're going to bubble in B on your scan sheet. The next one is a square with a diagonal line through it. If it's functioning correctly, it's going to turn on the red and green lights. The yellow and blue lights will remain unchanged. If there is an error in the square with a diagonal line switch, it will turn on the yellow and blue lights. Red and green will remain unchanged. If there's something wrong with that switch, the error code is C, bubble in C. Then we come to the switch with 2 circles with tails. That switch, if it's functioning correctly, toggles all colors. Any bulb that is turned off gets turned on. Any bulb that is already turned on becomes turned off. If there is an error with that switch, it toggles red and blue, yellow and green remain unchanged. The error code for the 2 circles with tails is the letter D. If there's something wrong with that switch, you would just fill in letter D on your score sheet. If there's no error and the switches are all functioning fine, then you would bubble in E. E means there is no error. Just to be clear here, if you look at the lights, the ones that are colorful mean they're turned on. The ones that are all black and white are turned off. All right, so let's see how this would work in a sample problem. So on page 23 of your study guide, you have the sample problem. The input, all the lights are on. There are 3 switches, and the output is red is off, all yellow lights, all other lights are on. Red off, everything else on. So how do we solve these sorts of problems? The first step, and you can use this study aid worksheet that's also in your study guide, you can use this to investigate what's going on and figure out your options. You won't have this on test day, but this is just a tool to help you study. So the first thing you would do is figure out what's going on if there's no error. If all the switches work correctly, what would the output be? And then you go switch by switch systematically to try to figure that out. You can automatically eliminate option A from contention since there is no circular switch in this problem. You have the wavy lines, diagonal square, and 2 circles with tails, so A is not going to be an option. So next, let's look and see what it's supposed to look like if there is no error. We start with all the lights on, and the output is only red is on, off, all the other lights are on. So we go switch by switch, figure out which lights are getting turned on and turned off if everything is functioning properly. When we do that, and you look there where it says switch 3, if it was functioning properly, everything would be turned off except the blue light. That's not what's happening, so we know there is something wrong with one of these switches. Therefore, we can eliminate answer E from contention. So we're going to go through this step by step, solving it and figuring out if there's an error in switch 1, what is the output? Look at that, see if it matches. If it matches, great. If it does not, you have to go on to switch 2. Going each way until you have diagnosed the error. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's something you really need to sit down and think about for a minute and process. It makes a lot more sense when you walk through it yourself. So let's say we look through each switch. Switch 1, if that was the error, red would be off, yellow would be on, green and blue would be off. If the error was in switch 2, only the green light would be on. If there's an error in switch 3, oh, everything's on except the red light, and that is where we were on the problem. Everything would be off, the red light would be off, everything else would be on, because there is an error in switch 3, which means that the correct answer to this question is D, because it is the 2 circles with the tail switch that has an issue. So tips on doing mechanical reasoning. Number 1, practice both of those sample questions in the study guide. Use the key to explore the A, B, C, D, and E options. One switch may be broken. No more than one switch will be broken per problem. You can eliminate alternatives one at a time, and the remaining answer has to be what's correct. And again, always refer back to that key that you will receive on test day. So tips in general on taking the multiple choice exam. Only answers marked on the answer sheet will be graded. Nothing in your test booklet will be graded, but feel free to mark up the test book to help you out if you need to. Multiple answers for one question will be scored as wrong. There is only one right answer to each question. There is no penalty for guessing, and you have about a 25% chance of getting it right. So if you don't know the answer to something, you might as well guess. Erase the answers on your score sheet that you wish to change. Don't cross them out. For difficult questions like the mechanical reasoning, maybe circle those, skip them, and come back later when you have time. Answer the easy stuff first, get as much done as you can, then use your remaining time on the hard stuff. Ensure all questions are answered before submitting the exam. All right, that concludes phase 1. I'm going to turn it over to my distinguished colleague, Kayla Burke, to tell you about phases 2 and 3. No, we'll save that for the end.
All right, so now we're going to get into phase 2 of the exam, which is the fire oral assessment mechanism. Oh, I can't see you guys over there. Most commonly referred to as the foam. So this portion of the exam, it is a video-based examination. So after you're done in this room with phase 1, we'll take you to what we call our oral board suites. You'll be in a room by yourself. You'll be sitting at a table similar to the one you're at now. There will be a monitor on the wall and a couple of cameras in there that's going to record you. So for this portion, you'll get 1 practice scenario that will not be graded or scored, followed by 6 test scenarios. All right, and we're going to show you a practice scenario for the foam just so you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like.
You are called to the scene of a carbon monoxide detector alarm. The resident is not responding to the alarm company.
I can hear a car running in the garage, so that means the carbon monoxide fumes are getting into the house. The resident isn't responding, so we need to use force to get through the door. That guy in the house could die if we don't get in there. You check on the resident. I'm going to open the main garage door and turn off the car.
What in the hell is going on? I was only asleep for a few minutes. There's no way my car set off the CO detector. My landlord is going to be pissed. Who do you think is going to pay for that door?
Respond now.
Was the practice scenario. Before we review the sample response, all of these scenarios are going to be situations that firefighters encounter every day as part of the job. The characters in the videos will be firefighters, fire officers, civil service personnel, and or individuals from the public. At the end of each scene, like you saw in the practice scenario, you'll respond as a firefighter or a paramedic. Though these are situations that firefighters encounter, you don't need any type of medical or fire skills. We don't expect you to know that for this exam. You'll learn all of that at the academy. So for each scenario, you're going to have 40 seconds to respond. At the end of each scene, the narrator will say, "Respond now," and then that 40-second timer will come up, and then that is your time to shine. Direct your responses to the last person shown on the video. The videos are not interactive, so clearly the people on the screen are not going to talk back to you. The way technology is happening these days, we might be headed in that direction, but for right now, the screen will not talk back. But we do encourage you to ask questions. Even though they can't respond, it shows that you're trying to gather information in order to resolve the problem. All right, so before we watch the sample response, a good score involves what we call the 3 Ps: problem, people, and plan. You want to identify the problem, address people appropriately, and then present a plan in order to resolve the problem. So look for these in the sample response, and then we'll discuss it after we watch it.
Sir, I understand you're upset. It has to be very distressing to wake up to all these people in your living room. But I want you to understand that your safety is our top priority, and we're glad to see that you're okay. We heard the carbon monoxide detectors going off. We tried to call, we tried to beat on the door, and there was no response. If we hadn't gotten in here when we did, you could have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Your life and safety matter more than anything else. We'd be more than happy to look at the door for you to see if it's an easy fix, or you might want to call your insurance company to see if it's covered. But first and foremost, we're glad that you're safe.
All right, how do we think he did? Good, bad? Did he address the 3 Ps? Okay, so some of the positives, he did address the 3 Ps. He showed empathy. One of the negatives, he talked a little fast, so it was a good response overall, but not perfect. All right, so for the foam test and scoring, once you're seated in that room, the entire foam test will take about 25 minutes. Again, the video camera is going to record your responses, and then at a later date, a panel of raters will grade your response. This phase of the exam is scored on 2 dimensions: problem sensing and resolution, and interpersonal relations. Both of these are graded using a 5-point scale, 5 being the highest score, 1 clearly being the lowest. So in your study guide on page 26, it gives a little more information, a little more detail about these dimensions. I would definitely read over these before the test. You won't have the you won't have the dimension explanations provided on test day. So if you know what they're looking for, what you're being scored on, that'll better help you when you're responding to the scenarios. All right, some tips for problem sensing and resolution. Clearly identify what the main problem is. Offer options that can resolve the situation immediately. Ask yourself, do I need any additional information in order to resolve this issue? Like I said previously, we do encourage you guys to ask questions. That tells the evaluators and the people who are going to be grading your responses that you recognize relevant info that can help resolve the scenario. Some tips for interpersonal relations. Ask yourself, how should they be approached? How would I want to be approached if I was in this situation? Does it call for a stern tone or comforting, as we saw in the candidate's practice response? You know, he was very empathetic to the situation. Display the most appropriate approach for each situation that you watch. Some more tips for the phone. Respond to the practice scenario at the beginning of the test. The practice scenario that we just watched, that is the exact practice scenario that will be on test day that you will watch. Respond to it. It helps to get those test day jitters out a little bit, and it helps you get comfortable with the video test format before your actual test scenarios that will be scored begin. All right, some more phone tips. Speak slowly and distinctly. Some people speak quickly when nervous. I feel like I'm naturally a fast talker. So if you know that about yourself, adjust accordingly. You don't get any penalty for taking a few seconds to take a couple of deep breaths, gather your thoughts before you start responding to the scenario. We also have additional practice and sample videos on our website that you can practice responding to. Set up your phone, record yourself, see how you did, see what you might need to improve on. All of that will help you out. All right, last but not least for this phase, test confidentiality and integrity. The content of both the multiple choice and the phone test are confidential. Do not share test content with other candidates. Phone scoring is relative, so if you help someone else, you might be hurting yourself. And again, this is a phase that determines where you are placed on the eligible list, so you know, why would you want to help other people to do better than you? Sharing information is grounds for disqualification, and we have several different versions of the exam. So you might think you're helping somebody, but then when they go to take the exam, they don't have the same version as you. So do not share the information. Any questions on the phone before we go into the third phase? No? Okay, we'll ask again at the end. All right, so phase 3, the firefighter mile, which is our physical exam. This exam consists of 10 events. You do the events back to back. You don't get any breaks. All candidates will be assigned, I believe, 2 practice days. 2 practice days. Definitely come to the practice days, even if you think you're in the best, most tip-top shape ever. Come to the practice days just so you can see the flow, run through the events, see what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, so you can adjust accordingly on your test day. And then everybody will get an exam date and time as well. While you're taking your physical exam, only test candidates are permitted in the room during the exam, so you can't bring your friends or your family. They won't be allowed to come in. For the exam practice sessions and for the actual test, water is available, but not during the test. So after you start your first event, you will not be able to take water breaks. While you're doing the firefighter mile, there will be a monitor with you that travels with you to each event to give you instructions at each event, let you know what's going to be required of you, what the pass point is, what time you need in order to pass, what time you need in order to pass with the point. So you'll have all that information. All participants will wear a 40-pound weighted vest during the entire test. So for all 10 events, you'll have that vest on when you do the stair climb. We're going to throw an additional 40-pound vest on you, so you'll have a total of 80 pounds on you when you're doing the stair climb. A caution on wearing shorts. We might not have that problem. I believe it used to be administered in the summer. It's going to be very cold when we do it this year, probably, so I don't think we'll have that problem. But if you are going to wear shorts, there is an event where you're literally crawling on your hands and knees. So in order to prevent your knees from getting scraped up, I would wear pants, or if you do want to wear shorts, throw on some knee pads. For the firefighter mile, there is an instructional video on our website. If you haven't learned already, there is a lot of helpful information on the website. Please utilize it. It is there for your benefit. And then there is the same video also on YouTube. It shows you, it goes through all 10 events, shows you what you need to do, shows you what you can't do, so you can already be prepared now that you know this information is out there. Prepare yourself for that phase of the exam. All right, and then some more test tips for the firefighter mile are in your study guide on page 29. Don't wait until you find out if you passed the first 2 phases to prepare. Start getting in shape yesterday. So start now. All right, and then we're gonna go over some frequently asked questions as Joel is coming up to handle that part. Any questions about the firefighter mile? No? Okay.
I have a question. So you said it's because it's going to be cold out in pants. Is that because it's going to be tested outside?
Okay, so his question was about what to wear on test day for the firefighter mile physical test. The test will be inside at the gymnasium at the fire academy. So you will be inside, but it will be February or March when you're taking the test. So just plan accordingly. All right, frequently asked questions. If I fail a portion of the firefighter mile on test day, can I take the remainder of the exam? The short answer is no. If a candidate fails one event of the firefighter mile, they fail the exam as a whole. However, you do get an opportunity to take the test again. Everybody gets one makeup day. So if you fail the firefighter mile on the first try, you'll get another chance a week or so later. Question, I'm a veteran. How do I get those veterans preference points? We need a DD-214 that states honorable discharge. That's the easiest way to get veterans preference points. Member 1 forms alone are not sufficient, and this needs to be submitted by the last day of testing, specifically the last day of the firefighter mile, which will be sometime in March. You can attach these to your application as well, and you can bring them to the test with you so we can double check in person. The link I gave you for the Civil Service Commission website and the firefighter test, there's also a veterans preference fact sheet online you can take a look at, and it gives you some more specific things that only military people know about. How is the exam graded? Phases 1 and 3 are pass-fail. Everybody who passes all 3 phases is placed on the eligible list on the basis of their Phase 2 foam score. Individual scores are grouped into 3 bands on the eligible list: the 1 band, the 2 band, and the 3 band. Each band is forwarded to the Division of Fire and the Division of Public Safety for processing. They will start with the 1 band. What are the remaining steps in the selection process? So after a decision is made to have a new recruit class, the division starts contacting people on the eligible list, 1 band first. They will go through a background questionnaire and investigation. There's also a polygraph, and then an interview with an oral board of fire personnel. Finally, there is a cardiovascular stress test and a psychological exam. When will I know how I did on the exam? Scores for the multiple choice exam will be sent in February, and scores for the overall exam will be sent in sometime in early April. How long will I remain on the eligible list? So candidates who pass all 3 phases remain on the list for 2 years or until another exam is given, or are removed from the list because of a background standard being failed. At that time, you will still, if you still want to be a firefighter, you must start the process again, beginning with the application. So the entire thing can take about 2 years. People who took the 2022 exam, I believe they have just started processing the 3 band. So there are still people on the previous eligible list who are being looked at to go into the academy right now. So you have, the list is good for 2 years is the short answer. My address has changed. What should I do? Update your profile. Log in at columbus.gov/government/jobs. Just update it right there, and all of your email communications will be sent to your new address. All right, well, thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you for your interest in becoming a Columbus firefighter. Before we open the floor to any questions you might have, the firefighter employment line is 614-645-0879, and our email is policefiretesting@columbus.gov. Thanks again. The floor is yours. Feel free to ask questions. Yes, sir.
That person I've had to apply, like, they're like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna get in, would they have applied like this month, just like all of us did? Kind of if any chance that they didn't get in?
Okay, so the question is, if somebody is on the 3 band from the previous exam, are they also taking this test? The answer to that is probably. If you don't know for sure whether you're going to get in or not, I always tell people it's a good idea to sign up for the next exam just to make sure you have additional opportunities. Good question. Come on, if you're thinking it, somebody else is too. Yes, sir, in the corner.
When is the next class starting, or the next group being processed?
Okay, so his question is, when is the next Fire Academy class starting?
Yes.
So typically, the Division of Fire has 2 classes per year. One starts in June, one starts in December, and they do that each year. So I believe the December class is pretty much all selected at this point, and the Division and Department of Public Safety are still processing people for next June's class. Yes, sir. All right, so the question is, if you score in the 1 band on your foam, how soon can you expect to go into the Fire Academy? So this test, we will finish everything up at the end of March. Early April is when the eligible list is due. So the absolute soonest you would be able to enter the Fire Academy would be June of next year, but it's more realistic it would be December of 2024 because the old eligible list is still in effect and they haven't finished it yet. So soonest you'll probably get into the academy if you score really well, December of 2024. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I was curious if there are any tax restrictions or anything like that.
All right, at this point, we had a great question about tattoos and tattoo restrictions. I'm going to turn it over to Josh Gilman from recruiting. He's going to tell you all about tattoos.
All right, so for the question regarding do we have tattoo restrictions, from what I've seen, no. So hands, we actually have a couple of members that have the neck, and we even had one female that had basically a scalp wraparound. So unless there's not anything, and I'll qualify that with offensive or, like hate speech or hate language oriented, I think you're good to go.
All right, thanks. Next question. Yes, sir. Okay, great question. Are there any hair or grooming standards?
All right, so for your question regarding hair and grooming standards, so there are some that are actually laid out. You'll receive a new hire orientation that'll go over hair, grooming, jewelry, pretty much everything that you can possibly imagine. The big one that most people seem to get really confused on is shaving. So in order for your fire mask to seat, you have to more or less be clean shaven. So you'll need to shave every day. And then I think we have two different standards, one for males, one for females, but pretty much it can't really come past your ears, and I believe there's a total length when groomed as well. So you might need to see a barber. So.
All right, anybody else? Yes, sir.
So I'm going to med school in January. What would be the process, like if I was in the one band and I got into the academy next December, but I'm still in med school and I have to push it off? Interfere with the scheduling of both?
Okay, that's a great question. So let's say you score very, very well on the fire exam and you're in the one band and you're up first to go into the academy, but you have some kind of conflicting schedule conflict with school or any number of things. So what you can do is through the Civil Service Commission, you can fill out a temporary withdrawal form that would temporarily remove you from the eligible list for a certain time period. When you have resolved whatever the scheduling conflict is, you can cancel the temporary withdrawal. You will go back on the eligible list wherever your original spot was, and you could be processed later that way without jeopardizing your career or whatever else you had scheduled. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Next. Oh, come on, if you're thinking it, somebody else is too. Yes, sir. That's a great question. How long does the background polygraph period take after you've scored well on the test and are getting hired?
All right, so to your question about how long does the process take, so the honest answer is it kind of varies. There isn't really like a set, you will get this done by this date. So as the people that, run it, like they're doing a lot of different things. There's a lot of different irons in the fire. What you can reasonably expect is if class time is coming soon, they're going to hurry a bit more. If we're in that lull period, they might take a little longer because they might have other things going on. Because background not only does the investigation, our oral boards, and a whole bunch of other things, but they're quite involved. But you will get through it, and if you have any questions, you can always just call recruitment. We can get your background's number, and you can always call them and harangue them, and maybe they'll let you know. So.
All right, next question. Yes, sir. All right, that's a great question. So say you do well on the test, you pass all the phases, you pass the background, and you get into the academy. What could possibly disqualify you from the academy? Good question.
That's actually a very good question that I wish more people would think about before they actually get to that phase of employment. So the biggest thing that disqualifies or washes out most people is they just quit. So it's actually a very physical job. You will do PT about 5 times a day on average. Some people apparently don't think that carrying around, like 60 pounds of gear and having to be cardiovascularly fit is like, oh, I can do this. It's good to prepare beforehand. So that said, the things that can actually disqualify you there are academic standards as well as physical standards. So they're not like incredibly difficult. I mean, most people make it through just fine. So I wouldn't stress that so much. Just as long as you show up and you work hard, you should be all right.
All right, yes.
If the eligible list is a small percentage of the total applicants, what's the biggest disqualifier? People feeling that, what are they feeling was disqualified?
Okay, that's a great question. Where do most people fail out in the process? a significant number of people who apply to take the exam don't show up on test day. It's counterintuitive and it's surprising, but a lot of people simply do not show up. For those who do show up, there's a hurdle at each phase. If you do not pass the written exam, we do not score your foam. So, you may have done very well on the foam, but not passed the written, so it's impossible to know exactly. If you do not pass the foam, you do not get invited to the firefighter mile. So, you could be completely physically fit and fail the written or the foam, and you may have crushed the firefighter mile, but you didn't get an invite, so we'll never know at that point. I'd say most people who make it past, well, if you make it past the written, the only place you could really fail next would be the foam. So a lot of people do wash out of the foam, so make sure you practice that, go over the study guide materials, and please record yourself responding to the practice scenarios. Watching yourself on tape, you will learn a lot. You will see things you can easily improve on. I highly recommend that. Another question I get a lot is, we only have a couple of practice scenarios up there. What's another great way to practice for the foam? Well, I can answer that for you. Who here loves or loves to hate a reality TV show? So pick the most cringe reality TV show you possibly can. When Snooki does something horrible, pause the TV, get your phone out, and record yourself talking her down off the ledge. That is great practice. Watch yourself respond. You'll learn things, you'll notice things, and you'll get better. That's the most important part. All right, next question. Yes, ma'am. Sure. Oh boy, that's a great question. What do we learn in the Fire Academy?
So the easy answer is everything that you need, and I'll go ahead and mic drop. No, I'm kidding. So when you go through the academy, it's depending on how holidays fall, it's about 7.5 to 8 months, and when you come out of the academy, you'll have your Fire 2 and your EMT Basic. And then those are the only two actual certifications. Those eat up about 2/3 of the academy. The back third is we bring down the best and the brightest in the city, and they will literally teach you everything there is to know about an engine, a ladder truck, spec ops. And it all culminates, and that's also when you do like your more advanced burn or your more advanced live fire burns. And then it all culminates with you show up and you literally do a 40-hour week where you just run drills all day long. So it's pretty good. It's also how we train our new officers on how to manage a company, because like you're new, they're new, have fun. So what's your follow-on question, ma'am? What if you already have pre-existing qualifications before you start the academy? So I already had they called it 240 then, but I already had my Fire 2 and EMT Basic. That's all well and good. Means you don't have to worry about testing out at the end, but you still have to go through the course. So.
All right, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned some possible study sessions. Do you know if those are next week?
Oh, great question. Is the recruiting unit hosting any study sessions in the next couple of weeks?
So fantastic question. We will be offering some additional study sessions. Currently, there's one that ended tonight about an hour ago, but we have 2 scheduled for December 13th and 14th, and we just got approval from the fire chief to have 5 more sessions. We're just trying to hammer down the dates. So if you're signed up to the Join CFD to 888-777, that information will be pushed out shortly.
Yes, sir. Okay, great question. How do veterans' preference points work for the firefighter exam? The way that works, if you pass all 3 phases of the exam and you have turned in your DD 214 and other documentation, an additional 5 points will be added to your foam score. You have to pass all phases of the exam before you receive the points. If you also have disabled veteran status, then you receive an additional 10 points to your score. but you have to pass all 3 phases of the exam.
Is there like a certain point of disability that they're like percentage that you were saying?
Okay, specific questions about veteran status and disabled veteran status. You would have to review our Veterans Preference fact sheet. It goes into the specifics there, and I'm not exactly familiar with all of the military jargon, but if you've been through it, I'm sure you know. And just take a look at that sheet, submit whatever documentation you have, and the worst thing you can hear is no. Yes, sir. Okay, great question. All the veterans' information is on columbus.gov? Yes, it is. That civil service website, on the firefighter page specifically, there is a veterans preference fact sheet. It's a PDF. Download it, take a look at it, and it's there, and it's going to be there indefinitely. Yes, sir.
What could disqualify you from the polygraph?
Oh, that's a good one. What could possibly disqualify you from your polygraph?
All right, so that's a great question about the polygraph. So what could disqualify you from it is obviously if you lie. So, I mean, that's kind of the simple knee-jerk answer. But the biggest thing, and this is more of an advice point for me, is when you go to do your personal history questionnaire, like if you said you didn't do something and then later you remember you did do it, that can be a showstopper. So you need to make sure that you get that corrected like before the polygraph occurs. Because if there's something documented and you forgot to mention it and they find it, that's pretty much an insta-kill. Aside from that, just make sure you know that you're relaxed and try to, be as honest as possible, and that'll normally get you past the polygraph just fine. So for a specific example of what can get you disqualified from the polygraph, I mean, I realize memory varies from individual to individual, but let's say you had like an operating under the influence when you were like 18, you're now 20. For the background removal standards, there are time limits when those will drop off and they'll still consider you, but let's say for whatever reason you completely forgot that happened, and then they find out about it, yeah, that's going to tank you.
Yes, sir.
So like, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you had used like marijuana in the past. Is that something that would like possibly make on a polygraph?
Okay, so the question is, if you have used marijuana in the past, is that something that is going to affect you on the polygraph? It's kind of in the details there. It depends exactly on how the question is asked and what the time frame is that they ask you about. There is an expiration date for most things. If you did this so far in the past, it's not a big deal. You can not lie about it, but it would not necessarily disqualify you for doing something like that. Plus, marijuana laws vary across the country, and it's just tell the truth and just do your best. That's all there is to it. I think Josh is going to add a caveat here.
So I'm sure you guys are probably getting a little bit tired of this answer, but it's actually on the website. There is a background removals standards document, and that actually very well lays out everything from moving violations, substance abuse, domestic violence, like traffic stops, etc., like everything. It lays everything out quite clearly.
Yes, sir. So the question is, how often do they actually do PT in the academy? I believe that's 5 times a week, not 5 times a day, right? 5 times a week, not 5 times a day. Now, I think the follow-up question was about how much PT, how much physical training do you do once you're on the job?
So to circle back to the academy, so you'll do PT every morning. So the normal flow of an academy day is you'll show up, they'll take roll call, you'll normally be already dressed in PT attire, You'll go out. It's primarily calisthenics, so we do 45 minutes to an hour, then everyone rushes in, you get showered up real quick, change your uniforms, stand uniform inspection, and then they give assignments for the day. Normally your class is broken into halves, and the way that the flow works is half will start Fire 2, half will start EMT Basic. When the Fire 2 folks graduate from Fire 2, they then go to Division Operations. The EMT Basic folks go to Fire 2, and then when DivOps is done, they do Basic, and then the Fire 2 folks go to DivOps. So you get everything, you're just offset by one round. But yeah, it's PT 5 times a day, and like I said, and you get the joy of like trying to figure out how to jam like 35 people through 8 shower heads in like 10 minutes. It's great. So.
And again, that's 5 times a week, not 5 times a day. What time is PT?
So in your orientation weeks, your work schedule will be Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. And so you might do a little something, but then after that, that's when, you know, we really pick it up. You'll switch to 7:30 to 3:30, and you'll do PT from 7:30 to, 8:15, 8:30. So, of course, that's also excluding, like, EMT basic training. That's pretty palatable, pretty easy. Fire training, and especially DivOps, like, you're basically getting a 2 a day out of that one. You'll get your PT session in the morning, and then your actual fire training.
All right, next question. Yes, sir.
I'm currently serving in the National Guard. Would I be able to get the veteran preference points?
Okay, you're currently serving in the National Guard. Would you still be able to get veterans preference points? It kind of depends on where your discharge date is prior to us establishing the eligible list. Download that veterans preference fact sheet on our website. It has specific information for people who are still serving. And again, it depends on your discharge date. It has to be an honorable discharge. But whatever other documents we might accept, it's listed on that sheet. Download it, take a look. Okay, anybody else? Oh, yep. Okay, so the question is there something else going on December 2nd? Yes, there's another information session exactly like this one. We'll show the same PowerPoint and answer any questions anybody might have. It will not be more in-depth. It'll be exactly like this. So if you've been to this info session, you do not need to come to the one on December 2nd. You're cordially invited if you'd like, but there's nothing new we'll cover there. Yes, sir.
So when you enter the academy, in terms of being at the academy while you're learning, how do you support yourself financially, or like, do you get paid while you're at the academy? Do you stay on site for a certain amount of time? In terms of
Nope, you're fine. That's a perfectly valid question. So going over the ins and outs of the academy, how do you financially support yourself, and then what are the lodging arrangements like? Both really easy questions. So from the first day you start, you'll be paid, compensated. We start at right around $29 an hour. It's like $28.37, I think, currently under the current contract. So that's typically enough to, have a okay standard of living. For lodging, we don't stay overnight there, so you go home at the end of every day. So.
All right, any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Okay, great question. How many people go through the academy at a time?
All right, so fair question. The amount that go through the academy is kind of evolving. It used to always be 50, so we normally break into halves of 25s. The current class that just started in October is currently 42, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we're trying to push to where it's going to be classes of 40. So.
Yep. All right, next question. Yes, sir. Okay, a question about our Okay, so for the firefighter mile, when are your practice sessions? So after you pass the foam, you will receive an email from Civil Service telling you passed the foam. And it will also give you your firefighter mile practice days as well as your actual test date. So it'll be sometime in late February, early March for all of those. Come on, who else has a question? Yes. Okay, how many people do we actually hire from the eligible list? That's a great question. So we give the division a sizable eligible list. We had over 360 people on the last one, and they're burning through it. So we will probably furnish an even larger eligible list this time, probably in excess of 400 people. In 2022, they will exhaust that entire eligible list. Everybody on the list will go through the background process and the polygraph process, the medical, psychological screening, all of that. So the division needs people. We need firefighters. The city's growing very quickly. We need more and more people. So I see no reason why everybody on the eligible list would not have a really good shot at getting into the academy this time. Yes, sir.
If we're getting smaller classes, then how do you explain the increased demand and bigger eligible list and then smaller classes? Is there a reason for that?
Okay, so the reason we're having an increased demand for firefighters, yet smaller class sizes, how does that math square? Josh, do you know the answer to that one?
I believe I do.
All right.
All right, so like I said, it's kind of evolving how they're doing business. So it used to be, as Mr. Gunn had said, there's a class of 50 every June and every December, so that's simple math, right? That's 100 bodies a year, right? So they're also going to look to where they're going to be pushing 40 people every 4 months, so then it's going to go up to 120 bodies a year. And the academy, although it is the best in the state, I mean, it's the newest in the state, everything's cutting edge, it's not designed to handle like 120 people at once, so there should, once they get it ironed out, be a rotation where there's never more than 2 classes in at a time. Does that answer your question? All right.
I'd like to piggyback on top of that if I could. We have also had a lot of people wash out during background and their physical stress test. For some reason, we've had a lot of people fail that. So if you have not started your physical fitness regimen yet, start today, start tomorrow, get outside and run, and do not skip leg day. Next question. You guys laughing over there. I'm serious. Don't skip leg day. You'll need it. Yes, sir. Okay, what does the physical stress test entail? And that's after background, and that's about the last step there. That's one of those traditional stress tests where they strap electrodes on you and have you run on a treadmill. Everybody in here is kind of young, so I'm imagining you haven't gone through that yet, but that's what they do. It's the electrodes. They monitor your VO2 max and what else? Let's.
So to piggyback on the stress test, which in my opinion is the hardest part of this entire, it's pretty gruesome. So what they're looking for is for you to hit a VO2 max number. We do the exact same test every 3 years for our fitness incentive. And so in order to get top marks, you have to hit it. The only difference is when we're doing it, to be told they say, hey, you've hit it, would you like to stop? You don't necessarily get that when you're getting the higher ones, so you go until you quit. Can I go into particular? Okay. So the way the test starts is they'll have a full 12 lead on you, and they'll check your blood pressure until you get to moving too fast where they can't really keep a beat on you. You have this weird looking gigantic scuba snorkel thing that's popping out of your face, which is not aerodynamic at all. But as you're going, every 3 minutes it gets a little steeper and a little faster. I believe it's designed to wear out a normal person in about 9 minutes. So then once you hit that 9 to 12 minutes, it's that weird, not quite a walk, not quite a run, and you're going because it's not a regular treadmill. You'll be at an 18 or 20% incline at that point. And then once you get above 12 minutes, that's when the magic starts. So lots of fun.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, regarding the stress test, are there any preconsiderations for pre-existing medical conditions?
So that's a good question. I guess the simplest answer is they will be monitoring, your vitals, and if something gets out of whack or you throw an error code, they'll probably shut the test down. So unfortunately, you do need to hit that VO2 max, which is confusing because most people, you can guess like, oh, that person's fine, or like, oh, that person's like 5 bills, probably not going to make it. But there are people that seem perfectly healthy that for whatever reason just cannot get their VO2 max up. But that's more the outlier than it is the rule. So tell them what you got going on if you have something, and they'll keep an eye out. But like I said, your safety is more important than you getting a job for what the test folks are looking at.
All right, next question. Getting some good ones tonight. And if you're thinking it, somebody else is too. Come on. What's that? Oh, I don't know. It's always something new every time. Everybody asks different questions every time. You guys are asking good ones. One thing I'd like to reiterate, if you have not applied to take the exam yet, make sure you file your application as soon as possible. Applications can only be received in the month of November this year, so you have until November 30th to get that application in. Also, if you're curious about the Firefighter Mile, our website has a video that shows you all the different events. Take a look at those and adjust your training regimen accordingly. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so what we're going to do before we break, Kayla, Josh, and myself will stay here for a while. If anybody has any questions you don't want to ask in front of the group, feel free to come ask us. The rest of you, thank you very much for being here tonight. Greatly appreciate you coming out, and best of luck on the exam. We're all rooting for you. Thank you.